It's not just a product, it's revenge. There are no rules, especially today.
This episode will show you how to distill a complex product into one simple idea so that your customers get it. We'll also talk about why relationships beat tactics right now and how to build a business that actually suits you. I'm speaking with Julian Smit, multimedia artist, producer, and software developer who also understands what it takes to build a highly successful marketing strategy. Julian, hello. I am so glad you could be on the Joe Show. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to see you again.
It's fun. So most business owners feel like they're working really hard, but still losing ground. Anyone you talk to, it's like, it's the grind. What do you think they're getting wrong, if you could sum it up?
Um, I, Good question. First and foremost, they might not be getting anything wrong, right? Can we recognize that this is a horrible economy at the moment? And if I'm being honest, I don't know that I know anybody who's completely thriving at the moment. I see people in one of two categories. Either they're not finding enough work, enough opportunity, or they are thriving in their careers and their jobs, but they are burnt out and everything else in their lives is suffering, right? They're working unbelievable hours. So it's the economy in large part. I would say that what I'm seeing is two, let's say, competing forces. Um, on one hand, I do see, and I hope, and I think this will eventually certainly prevail at one point, a lot of sort of pent up energy. In other words, a lot of people have a lot that they want to do, a lot of projects that they want to get to, a lot of aspirations. Um, but they're feeling a little restricted by their budgets and the economy at the moment. And then, without getting too deep or complicated about it, I would say that we, the people at large, have been subjected to a fairly long period of labor arbitrage. And those two things are sort of at odds with each other. That labor arbitrage is not sustainable. People need to
Mm.
work. People are hungry to work and do things, and they'll find a way. You and I were talking a little bit before we got started. That I've certainly been making a shift towards self-reliance. The more I can be self-reliant, the better. I feel
Mm.
safer, more secure that way. The more, we're talking about, you can, in a tough economy, you can either try to sell more, make more, or you can also try to reduce costs and do things more efficiently. And I've done that, tried to do that sort of holistically with my whole life, and moving out of Toronto and out to an area surrounded by farms, and having my own well, and learning how to manage my own water system and that sort of thing. So um, it might be that that in some cases they might not be making mistakes. Um, if I were to try to sort of really try to sort of find, let's say, okay, I'm seeing a lot of this and that seems wrong. Off the top of my head, I would say one, people are looking to, are sort of desperately looking, like, hey, we need AI, and it's a sort of directionless AI, right? We need more AI. Okay, what do you want it to do? We don't know. We just want more of it, right? Okay, well
There's a
that's
meme there. I could see the meme.
right. So there you're not helping anyone with that. The other one, of course, is, hey, we can use AI now to do this, and then that lets us fire all of these people. Well, okay, that's great, but I think a lot of people who are doing it that way are going to find very quickly that their reputations become, what, as a company that's very cold, heartless, inhumane, right? And all of those people who were laid off will say, I was laid off because we were just a number. We were just nothing to them. And all of those
Mm.
people will have that feeling and impression and that experience with them. And then anybody who's calling into their call center and cannot get a person with a pulse is going to say this is a cold company. They were great, good, but now they're not.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
so I think people need to be clear. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity, so much opportunity with AI, but people need to take some time and be thoughtful about, well, how are we using this, and what is sensible, and can we, repurpose those people in a way that's constructive. um let's be ambitious ourselves and either find, new projects, new things to do, and direct those people if we think that we can sort of do something without them, find new things for them to do and innovate with them.
Mm. I
So I
want to
think
pick
that.
up on what you said about how you've moved out of the city
Mhm.
and got some land around you now. And it's a fairly radical thing to do, but I think a lot of people would be interested in how you're making it work, um, simplifying your life. So you are running a business and you're very, very skilled in many areas. What would a day in the life of Julian look like these days out on the land?
Oh yeah. Well, that's, there's certainly a bit of time in my day with Shep the dog. He needs a good run outside. As you can see, I'm in an old barn as my office temporarily at the moment. While I kind of sort this. There's some things that we wanted to sort of build here for all of that. So there is some property management in the summer. I'm on my John Deere tractor running around mowing the lawns and that kind of thing. And as I said, and now I have my own water system. So, there's been a bit of a learning curve in terms of doing that. I never had to worry about that living in the city. Um, and then as far as my job and my work, well, I've been working essentially remotely anyways. A lot of what I've been doing has been online, and digital, and building apps and websites and tools for people. So I'm able to continue to do that from here. That doesn't change anything. I mean, there was a bit like the reception and so on. Actually, at first, was a bit to sort out, but you get a bunch of relays and everything works well that way. And then I've become pretty, I would say, fairly efficient at, you know, identifying, okay, here are the things that are important, that are must do's in my day, that are the next steps for my business, for the company, for the next client that I need to get. Um, here's a series, and so those are just sort of priorities that I try to like make sure that I spend some time each day focused on that. Um, then there's a whole bunch of things that are, let's say, complex, involved projects that are iterative, that are going to take sort of blocks of time, and I'll work on those when I know that I can dedicate some time to it and on that block and focus on it. And then I have a whole other bank of low hanging fruit, fun stuff to tackle when it's like, I just don't feel like that heavy, complex stuff right now. Let's just do this fun little project, and see if that low hanging fruit yields anything.
I'm looking forward to getting into your main project soon. Part of the reason I do this podcast is to inspire business owners to build businesses that suit who they are, not fitting into some sort of template. And you're clearly doing that, which I think is fantastic. So, as a business owner, you're designing your lifestyle, your location, your business. You also need to market that business, from out there in the woods. What what are you finding is working right now to
Mm.
get the word out about your products and your services?
Um, so to be honest, what I'm finding most effective is not the shiny new bells and whistles. It's the tried and true uh classic networking, real relationship building, um, zeroing in on a few people, core people that are interested in your success and that you can work with. Um, it's real connectivity. It's real engagement. You and I met several years ago, and we're kind of wrapping our heads around the Facebook advertising market world
Mm.
around this at the same time. And I stopped providing that as a service around 2021, in large part because for two reasons. not that it's not, it can't be effective. Like, if Facebook advertising or Google ads or all these things, they can be effective. But it was this weird sort of catch 22 where if the client did what I was doing for them without me and didn't have my expense, then it would have worked. Then they would have been profitable. But
Ah,
they didn't know how to do it, right? And I needed to make money, and so that little difference, that little like the margins were just getting smaller and smaller.
mm,
Um, it's only now that I've launched, my product that I've kind of gotten back into like, okay, let me, reapply what I've learned with Facebook, all that advertising. And because of that experience, and because this was such a thought out platform, I had so much lead up time to launch that every time that a marketing idea would come up, I'd kind of put that in the shelf. That I had so much material in the bank for this that running those campaigns has been easy, and my metrics were fantastic off the top. Like, in other words, I was like, I had to double check to be like, is this what is industry standard here? Because my click through rates are amazing. Like, what's going on here? You know, and sure enough, yeah. So my campaigns were great, uh, but the quality of the actual, like, what it's converting isn't.
mhm.
Right? And so, there's two things. One, again, it's a new product, so I don't. You and I were talking a bit about, it's going to take me time to develop those user cases and build trust and so on. But I think, again, also there's just a lot of spam. There's a lot of junk out there, and so um, I'm not so sure that that stuff is as effective. Not that it's not, but I think, in addition to the classical networking, and I haven't gotten to this yet, but I'm likely to go back to some traditional marketing medium like radio.
Mhm.
I think radio's fantastic.
Yes. I think approaching it from a bunch of different directions is very important. People think that one thing will be the fix, and it will never be a permanent fix. You turn that tap off and you're gone. And as you say, if a business owner is to use somebody to run their ads, you've got to have the volume to account for the fees as well as the ad spend and the cost of goods sold. So definitely doing those sums matters. If somebody could focus on one thing this quarter, so if they were going to do a 90-day sprint for their business, what would you recommend in your experience would be the most powerful thing they could do to grow their business?
Um, Good question. I mean, first, I guess in part, I would want to know what are they doing right now, right? Where are they? Where do they feel stuck?
Mm,
Um, um, so obviously, everyone's talking about AI, and I think if you are not excited by it, if you're not using it, if you're not excited by it, if you haven't found a way to make it work for you, then I would focus on that, right? And in some ways, maybe it's just a simple question of this, is to take a step back, and I can think of it as a sort of a two-step prompt, you know. Um, Here's what my pain points have been this year. Here are what my objectives are for this coming year. Uh, Here's how I know that I want to handle it. Here's how I know I don't want to handle it. Can you help me with a plan? Right? And the AI will spit back an answer to you saying, sure, here's your plan. Do this, 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 and this. And you'll look at that plan and you'll say, oh, okay, I can handle this. I can handle this. I don't know what that is, or how do I do that? Or I don't want to do that. Is there a way I can get around that? And it'll say, yeah, right. So I think it's I would say, the first thing you could do is be clear. What are your pain points? What are your objectives? And then prompt it and figure out a plan and fill in your gaps. For me, AI isn't AI will never replace me. AI is my gap filler, right? And maybe this is, an answer to your old question, your original question about what are people doing wrong. I think, one, it's too early to say. I see a lot of posts, if you're doing this with AI, you're doing it wrong. I said, well, one is, I think it's a little early to say what's doing AI right. And in fact, if that's your attitude or you're coming at that, I think I see a lot of like people who are angry at AI, right? And my thought about that is you're competing against it, not with it. Stop competing against AI. You're not going to keep up with it,
Mm, mm.
right? Grok already is PhD level in every subject. You're not going to catch up to it.
We're mad if we
Um,
don't augment our IQ each day by tapping into that.
yeah, and you're not competing with everybody else either. You're competing with yourself, right?
Mm.
Like it's just a matter of how can I use this as a tool to up my game? How can I use it to fill in the gaps where I'm weak? Um, how can I do the things that I do and bend it to do what I do and automate it to make it a product or a service, right? There's so many
Which
ways.
ties right back into building the way that suits you. You know, it's so personal to be able to use an AI and train it with the information you want it to have, and then have it create something unique with you. I mean, what an opportunity. What a time to be alive and building a business, really, even in tough times, you know?
Yeah, there are things that were never possible a few years ago that weren't possible to me as a developer, as a programmer, and now it's opened up a lot of opportunities and options. And I think exactly that my experience exactly is that there's so many tools out there, and in many cases they might be great and they might do something, but in most cases, people are like, but I want it to do this. I want it to do that. Or it doesn't quite do it the way people have their way and their process. And for the first time, you don't have to have an out of the box solution. You can make a solution that is, you know, at this point, I want input. At this point, I want you to give me input, and
Mhm.
and 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 you get to choose where you insert yourself and where the AI is an assistant.
So you've given small agencies, I guess, in particular, I will correct me if I'm wrong on that, a jump start on that with you've created Studio J. So tell me
Yeah.
about that. Like, tell me who it's for, what it does. I love that it's not subscription based, that you just buy the thing and it's yours, but it's still flexible. So I need
Yeah.
you to I need you to
Explain. Yeah.
unpack
Yeah. No.
this.
Yeah. Fair enough. It will. It is not an easy thing exactly to explain, but it's a platform. It's a self-hosted platform that has three tiers of admin, staff, users with security controls. And so it's sort of like a WordPress, in that, you have certain tools and you can add them on. What's very different, is that unlike, well, obviously it doesn't have the ecosystem that WordPress has with all the gazillion apps, that you can add on. Hopefully, eventually, we'll get there at some point. But what this lets you do is plug in your own API keys with AI, and then build your own module and say, I need a calendar tool that operates this way. I want a system that will track this. I want to use the AI that will assist me with my own little app here, and you can immediately plug it in, and it knows it has rules and it has sort of guidelines, and so the AI knows how to build modules for the platform itself.
So, in a one
Um,
sentence, if you have, on the box before you unpack it, pretending we have a
mm,
physical box, what does that say? Like, what does this do for me as an agency owner?
um, well, okay, so it is a company portal in a box. So this is a self-hosted um, resource for staff and teams to collaborate with each other. It has a bunch of pre-baked project management tools, sales and licensing tools, creative tools, and then a module builder and a module installer so that you can say, hold on, our administrative team needs something that will do this. And
Mm.
then you say, I want that with a little dashboard card to appear on the admin dashboard. Or I want all the staff or all of my clients to have a tool or this interface that they can interact with that will do this. And then you tell it to do that and you can create that module and that tool. So you're creating the interface for you to operate, with people, with clients potentially, or with staff. It's a sales platform if you want it to be. You can plug in Stripe, and then if you have products already, those will immediately populate in there, and you can use it to track and sell items in the way that you would add on WooCommerce to WordPress. Um, and so, to your point of, it's what it takes away for agencies is all of these subscription fees. Uh, it,
Exactly. In a world of subscriptions, you've created a project management system, an analytics system, and a client interface system, and a product system integrated with Stripe that is a lightweight file that people buy once. Can they plug it into their
exact.
existing site backend, or do they need to build a new website for it? Is it just plug in, or how does that go?
Yeah, so all you need to be able to do, and that's the only sort of technical barrier, is to take the files, the installation files, and drag it into a folder onto your website. And then
Mm.
once you do that, you just navigate to that location on your website, and the installer will immediately start to run. It'll write the configuration file. It'll create all the data folders. It doesn't have a database. It uses pure JSON files. So updating it is actually super easy because all you have to do is just sort of, save your data folder. You could, and then you could reinstall that anytime you wanted. Um, and then once that installation, it'll guide you through the whole steps of creating an admin password. And then if you have API keys for it, there's a whole bunch of pre-baked, whether that's Stripe, Cloudinary, Claude.ai, 11 Labs for voice tools and so on. If you have those API keys, there's an API keys manager, and then those are now secure. And so that's a barrier for a lot of people developing a tool with AI. They'll say, build me a tool where you help me, it interacts and it does that and it works. The AI is helping you do something. And you're like, okay, now I want to put that out to the public. And it'll say,
Mm.
yeah, but your API key is not secure.
Would be exposed, yes.
It will be exposed. And so
Mm.
what this does is simply create the security layer, create all those layers for you to now go and build your own app. And you don't have to deal with those, creating that security layer, creating those tools. um, and you can go in and build it customize the tool the way you want to, and you're not beholden to me or anyone. You can, I hope that people will get engaged and participate in it, and there's an ecosystem where other people are building modules and sharing modules and
Mm.
selling modules over time. But if you want to say like, no, I'm on my own, I'm going to run this and build my own tools and turn this into what I want to turn it into, great, go for it.
So I hope
Uh,
anyone listening to this can just bear with me while I tease this out of you, because I think it's really important. It is a little bit technical. Um,
yeah,
and usually I don't get into that on this show, but for this one, we have to. For those listening who know what N8N is, where you can build flows and you have your API keys stored separately so they're not exposed in the flow. So you're essentially building little apps, I suppose. I could call them that.
sure.
If they buy Studio J and they've got their project management, their client portal, their Stripe integration for products they want to sell, they've got the ad analytics if they buy the level that includes that. It's a one-time fee, they own it. So it's fantastic because it frees you from the subscription misery that everybody's
Yep.
facing in their bank accounts. It just lets you own this properly. And you will be developing a community where people can share ideas. Can people use it in a similar way as N8N to build these kind of apps or flows, or have I got that right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. So By the way, I didn't really quite answer your question in terms of who is it for. Agencies was the first audience that I went for in the sense that I have been running my own agency for years. It's the world I knew. And so I knew
Mm.
the project management, some of the project managements, the tools that would be useful, some of the things that would help with scope creep for things like video projects. Uh, but
Mm.
to your, but, uh, to your point, it's not really just for them because there's a lot of user cases for this. Developers themselves certainly could benefit from that, and exactly that they can go and build their own modules and then use the Stripe integration to sell that. And if it was like a user base system, right, where they wanted to be their own, they wanted to be the software as a service, then they could create that system in Studio J.
Mm.
And yeah, to your point, yeah, exactly. Then you can it's people are free to turn it into what I've done is basically created it, it's in many ways like Shopify. I would say it's to simplify it, it's a little bit of WordPress, it's a little bit of Shopify, it's a little bit of Basecamp, a little bit of Wix.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your
Mm-hmm.
front end
Mm.
um, of your website. And the reason why I haven't bothered with that yet, it really is one that actually would be fairly simple. But at this point, you're customizing things yourself anyways. So your front end website, why not, if you're already working with AI, why not build the front end web page to say, I want to do this, I want it to have this, I want it to look like
Mm.
that. You can customize your home page any way you want as standalone. And Studio J does let you, um, uh, it's mostly contained into where you've installed it. But you can, for example, so I've got a built-in chat agent inside the system that can help you with the system that answers some questions when you're logged in. And then there is also a module that is your public chat widget, right? So if you wanted to have a public sales widget or sales support widget, so that's more on your public side. And so that little tool, you can train it inside. You say, here are the frequently asked questions and knowledge that I need you to have, and then it'll say, okay, here's the little code to put onto your homepage,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And
Brilliant.
so um, so you can absolutely integrate that back end into your front end the way you want to.
Mm. Mm. And for a
Um,
client portal, you could build a dashboard that shows their whichever ads they're running on paid traffic. You could have analytics showing there and pull in their Google Analytics as well. Would that be right?
yeah,
Or the
so
Google Search Console to show how people are finding the site and the most, all that sort of
100% you could.
stuff.
Well,
It's the
again,
API.
to your point, what you could do is whatever it is that you're envisioning right now,
Mm.
you could build it, right?
Mm.
With this, because again, the part about, who has access to it, this is a tool for my staff, and then they can export a document for the clients, or this is a tool that I want my clients to be able to access directly. You could define what that
You'd
is.
build the whole shebang in my mind. If you're going to download this, you'd build it all out, wouldn't you? You'd have staff management and client.
Yeah, well, however, whatever
Yeah.
it is that you're envisioning for that
Yeah.
interface,
Yeah.
so what I've done is I've built sort of a basic module for a bunch of things that gets
Mm.
you started. But if you don't like the way I did my tool, then build your own, right? Build a new
Mm.
one. But so, for example, with Facebook, I do have a Facebook ads campaign analyzer, and I made it so that it's like right from the top, like when I went into the top of my campaign, I would just download the export SQL that Facebook gives you, and I wanted to just be able to dump it into the, like, drag and drop, and then have it do some automatic analytics for me. So
Mm.
that does that module, Facebook analyzer, exists within the tool. Um, the way it works right now is that so that one, I think I have it so that it's defaulted to staff. and admin use it. But as the admin, you could make it just admin. You could make it admin and staff and clients so that the clients could go and use that tool themselves.
Mm.
Um, as far as what you just described, no, I don't have a module that does exactly that yet. Um, but the the way it's built is for you to is for more for you to get, work with, let's say, Claude.ai, say this is what I want the tool to do. This is how I want it to work. Um, here are Studio J's guidelines. Build it to that.
It's
And
brilliant. It's great.
yeah,
I mean, I just remember the money I used to spend on agency analytics, which was pretty good, but I could never pull, for instance, with the email marketing from ActiveCampaign, it would show me opens and clicks, but I could never pull in the revenue generated. And that's what I want to show the clients. And they kept saying,
yeah,
oh, if you hook up a spreadsheet and use the API. And back in that day, that was just like, I was banging my head going, but this is the main KPI. Why
this
isn't
is the
that showing? Why do I have to go and build? Like now I would be more confident to probably go and do that. But so when I think of Studio J and I'm thinking of your Facebook ads module, I'm thinking, okay, can I just sort of duplicate it, change the API, change the settings a little to create these other modules on my dashboard? Is that sort of the right way I should be thinking about this? Or am I running
That's
ahead?
right. Yeah, that's right. No, no, you're absolutely right. That when you get Studio J, there are two main dashboards. There's a main one that is for public, for everybody, admin, staff, and clients potentially. And then you have an admin dashboard. So
Mm,
anytime you want to build a new tool, a new thing, you're just saying, it either goes on the everyone dashboard or just the admin, right?
mhm,
And you decide where, and so that'll create a card on that main dashboard, and
mhm,
then that card will now go to the tool.
mm,
Um, and I've written it so the way that it works right now is that um it's basically sort of simple, like made mostly for simple modules in the sense that that dashboard will now go to one index page, right? That one that is your tool, your interface, everything there. You might have a vision for what I call a module, a suite of tools. In other
mhm,
words, there's no way that a one page self-contained tool can handle every step of this. I
mhm,
need
mm,
step
mm.
one, step two, step three, step four. So I call that an expanded suite. So I do have written guidelines that you can, again, same thing, feed into Claude.ai and say, this is an expanded module and it's more complicated. Um, and that is, and a complex module like that would be too much usually for most accounts like on Claude.ai. And the reason why is because when you feed in the instructions that it gives you, it's not giving you all the files. It is giving you separate files, but it actually gives you a zip file.
Uh-huh.
It just gives you it knows that what you want at the end is not just the tool and the way you build it, but a zip module that you can drag into the module installer. So because of that, it's spending a lot of energy and time and credits and stuff like that, piecing together this whole thing. But what you're saving a lot of time on is that you put it into your thing and it unpacks it, and your dashboard card is there on whatever dashboard you wanted it to be on, and you click onto that and it goes over to your new tool, and now you interact with your tool, and whatever's wrong with it, you now say, hold on, you got this right, but this part's wrong, and you're tweaking it, right? See how that sort
Yes.
of hopefully makes that process simpler. And I think a lot of people who are playing with AI at the moment run into some technical barrier, whether it's, "Oh, okay, this is cool and it works, but now how do I make this secure so that I could make it a public tool?" Or
Mm.
they're hosting it on their own environment, and I don't actually own it, right? It's not, I don't own the data, or I don't own whatever, or it's hard to
Yes.
fix and tweak and make my own. So there's that barrier, I think a lot for a lot of people.
It's
Uh,
a fantastic start. So just to sum it up again for those listening, Studio J is an out of the box project management uh, system that can have client interface and staff interface and analysis for campaigns. I do think from the agency point of view, because that's my world, but
yeah,
it could definitely be used for other instances as well. And you pay once
yeah.
and you can adapt it and iterate it to suit your needs, which is fantastic instead of having to put a feature request on a list that might get done next year.
Hmm.
So I want to commend you for what you've built. Looking forward to hearing what the beta testers say in their feedback and
Yeah, I'm
seeing
looking
where
forward
this
to getting that out.
goes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So for anybody listening to to this episode, if you're interested in that kind of thing for your business, do get in touch with Julian. Um, it started as a bit of a frustration, I suppose, for you. What triggered you to build this?
Um, Yeah, well, you're part of it is exactly what we've been talking about this sort of endless software as a subscription model that you run
Yes,
into, this constant pay to play, and all of a sudden there's some new tool and they're doing it that way, and oh, okay. And they all suck you in the same way that it's like, a free tier at the beginning or it's low cost. But then as soon as you're kind of hooked, right, then they're jacking up the price,
it's
in the case of,
terrible.
yeah,
Hundreds
right.
of dollars a month. I just canned it.
Right.
Yes,
So my issue with all of the existing platforms out there, my issue with WordPress is it's fantastic, but it's gets very chunky, very heavy, and gets very slow. It's like 50 megabytes for the initial download, and then once you start adding things on, it gets slow. Shopify, they'll say, hey, it's a cheap initial price, but all of a sudden, when you want to make Shopify work for you, then they hold on. Oh, you want a calendaring system, or you want it to look, you want this kind of storefront to look this way. Um, then that's jacking up the price, and you already have your monthly fee on top of that, and then they're going to take off the fee for each transaction. For something like Basecamp, it's even worse in terms of the price increases. It's seats based. So every time that as you grow and you bring on more staff or more clients, well, the price goes up and it gets more and
exactly.
more expensive. So it makes it hard for you to scale your own business when the cost of doing business is always going up.
I actually
Um,
find it unacceptable too in an environment where software is getting so much cheaper to create and
mhm.
intelligence is the price is plummeting. And yet these platforms are hiking their prices up. As I said to you before we hit record, I was paying $850 a month for SEMrush and I did not have the full suite of tools. And then they kept trying to sell me more. And I just find that unacceptable. I really do. So
Yeah,
I cheer you on in building something that's a one and done price that also
it
lets businesses be flexible.
I have said that, it's not just a product, it's revenge, and you can have it too. And yeah, you're right. I was saying this to you before, in the marketplace, I see nothing but, everyone advertising software as a service. In the developer world, I see more people doing what I'm doing, moving towards independence and either building it just for themselves or building tools that deliver that freedom. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that. You're seeing a return to software ownership. And back in the day when you would buy that CD in a box and you would own it.
Mm.
The Studio J is built on what I refer to as stateless data architecture. And I know that sounds technical, but actually,
Explain it for me. Explain it for this
uh, uh,
blonde girl who doesn't know what that means.
well, no, and I don't expect, I stumbled upon this, and what it means is, again, as I said, Studio J has no database, and this was the thing that people said, no, you need
Yeah, it seems
it.
odd.
It does seem odd, but in fact, there's so much that you can do right now that's on the browser side, on the individual side. So in other words, there's so many tools where your browser can do all the calculations and all the data and so on. And then rather than have that data then transferred over to a software as a service company who own it, right? Who are charging you to keep it and so on. Well, why not keep it yourself? So an example is the first example when I started talking about this was a portfolio builder tool, right? Where you're used to saying, okay, I'll go over to the software as a service and then I'll enter in all my data there. And then they're going to give me the output page that I want. And if I want to go update it, I got to go back to them. They have my data. But here's
Hmm.
the thing, right? If that portfolio page, obviously the data's already there in the page. It's there. So
Yes,
the way I've been building tools, stateless data architecture is, okay, take the page itself and plug it back into the tool. So
better.
I'm not hosting it anywhere. I'm not holding, so when I build a tool like that, I don't, why am I going to charge you when I'm not hosting anything for you? All the processing is being done on your side and it's just sitting there with as an empty shell with no data. You take the old output and plug it back in, drop it back in, and poof, there's your data in editable form. And then when you've edited it, added more content, for your portfolio in this example, now export it. Okay, boom. Now you've got your data again. So it's stateless. And as I said, as much as that's complicated, what the eureka moment for me was realizing that this is a fundamental truth of creation itself, of nature. Nature is, you are an example of stateless data architecture. Your data that is you is not stored in a database. It's not stored up in some cloud. You are constantly regenerating, constantly changing. You have permanence. You're you, but who you are from is not the same person as yesterday. So there's a statelessness to it, right? And then offspring is a perfect example where we're making a sort of copy of ourselves, but they're independent. So that's what Studio J is, it is a bit of a paradigm shift, and that's why this is complicated to explain because people don't quite have something to compare to.
It's
Uh,
actually, I'm going to push back. It is not complicated now that you've explained this to me. In a nutshell, for me, and you said it best yourself, it is a form of revenge, and I love it. It is effective revenge because it is allowing business owners to take control of their cash flow as far as their project management systems go. It's allowing business owners to take control of their data and retain control of that without feeding it into the big industries. And yeah, it's just also allowing business owners to stay flexible in how they design their systems to suit themselves, which perfect, design a business to suit yourself. So it's three things, it's cash flow protection, which everybody is looking for right now. It's data protection. And it's also designing a system that fits perfectly into the personality and the processes of your company.
Yeah, and this is why I knew talking to you would be so good because you're so good at narrowing down these things and exactly that. I have a lot that I'm working on and trying to communicate, but I think you nailed it right there. One thing that I've said about it often is Studio J is not the best at any one thing. What it is the best at is becoming anything. Unlike, even though, so WordPress as the example that does have a big advantage of a giant catalog of potential add-ons, but either those cost money or they don't quite do the thing you want it to do, or it just adds to the bloat of your website that slows it down. Um, Studio J at the moment does not have the ecosystem, so isn't a huge bank of other user-made modules that exist. They don't. It's an open platform for people to build whatever they want. And in that sense, the fact its ability to become anything is what makes it special. Yeah.
It does. It's actually a scary thing as a human to take responsibility for ourselves. We know
Mm.
this, and as I said to you before our call with Bitcoin, for me, for my partner and I to essentially create our own bank, It means you have to take some responsibility. And if
Mm,
you want to do it properly, you take self custody. And there's a bit of a learning curve involved in that because you don't have the structure of the institutions. And we naturally want somebody to look after us. I'm
mm,
sensing a little bit of that with Studio J. You're taking responsibility for the architecture of your systems, but the benefits of the cash flow and the data that come with that, I think would be absolutely worth it. So I think you're building something that is extremely valuable for small businesses, and I think you need to keep going with that. That's for sure.
thank you.
Yeah. So just bring it back to, you know, building a business to suit ourselves. What's something when you think about what experts say it's the right way to build a business and you've just gone, this isn't right for me, and you've given that the flick?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good question. There's a lot of things that I see. The one right now I would say is content is king, or content, more and more, and content on mass. That's certainly, when you and I were sort of exploring this space at the same time. Gary V was the number one guy, and I still quite like Gary V. I think he's got a very positive message. But he's producing content at scale, and I thought that was sort of the thing that I was chasing after, and so on. And I think that's very personal to two things. One is how simple is your message, and what's your appetite for it. If you hate creating content, then my suggestion is, okay, spend the time up front, figure out what your core messaging is, and the variations of it, and then just create a schedule and recycle that. That's fine, right? If you enjoy content creation and coming up with new ways and want to have, exciting new stuff that's out there and be fresh and new all the time, then go ahead and do that, right? It's so there's no one hard and fast rule for all businesses. I think how you do it is the part. I think, yeah, there's just too much of people saying this is how you do it, and the answer is, mm, you know, you're better to find your own path and do things the way that you think works. You'll probably get and from day one, since I've always been talking about the economy of authenticity, which, by the way, I think that's in that realm of those types of things that people say, just just be authentic. For I think for yourself and myself, that's actually easy. You and I can't not be authentic. We just are who we are, kind of a thing. For other people, that's harder to do. It's easier said than done. So there's a lot of those expressions that like, phrases of going around. Uh, Build your personal brand is a pet peeve of mine. To me, that are we just talking about traditional um, um, reputation management? And why do
Yes.
we and why do we like? I don't know that people want. Why do we want to be brands? We're not cows, right?
Yes. Well
Like
said.
yeah. I mean, my argument with that one is always, it's like, okay, like you keep the brand, I'll keep the cow, right? Like people don't have a positive association with that word anyways, actually. Like brand is not a positive word, but somehow along the way, we've allowed ourselves to become the product. And that's where I refuse. Like I will not let the technology be the master of me. I will be the master of the technology. Thank you very much. Right. And it's more about life. Like for me, and I've said this for a long time, success or happiness is for you to define. Don't let other people tell you what, success is. You know, people always generally pin that around money and financial, but for me, it's always been, one, not a destination. Happiness is the same thing. It's fleeting in a way. But really it's more about optimized integration of self, right? All having the most aspects of your life well integrated. And that's not something that it ever is static. That ebbs and flows. You fall in the pocket, you fall out of the pocket. But that's what you're trying to do. And that's what success is to me. And I think that's going to be different for every individual, for every business owner. So I'd say there are no rules, especially today.
Well said. You're reminding me of Sarah Farrant, who's a chiropractor living in in New Zealand, on Waiheke Island. She wrote a book called The Vital Truth, and she talks about living above or below the line, but how it fluctuates
Mm,
with health and also with every other aspect of our life. You know, as you say, it's not something that's static. It's something that you're always working to optimize and bring in as much of, how do I say, the real experience of living life to the full in every aspect of your life. Um,
right. Yeah. My well-being is not just defined by my work success. It's defined by my health, as you mentioned. It's defined by the well-being of my family.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and, and the people that I love in my life. Um, the more that I see my friends and family and everyone thriving, the better I am. Right. So, uh, there's so many aspects to what is success, or what is happiness. This
mm.
is why somebody can go to a beach and be absolutely, delighted for a day. And after 3 days, maybe they're bored.
Yes.
Right. Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So that's why I'm saying, it's neither success is defined by you. You can define what that means to you. Right. And I think, we were saying, I think before this started, I think a lot of people got very focused after COVID as to what matters to them. And I think for a lot of people, that was those types of things that we're talking about now in terms of family
Mm.
and health and, um, uh, you know, there's a lot of
Yeah.
noise. There's a lot of noise in the world today, right?
So just to, I guess, wrap up, I feel like this has been a very effective conversation from a few angles.
I hope so.
Thinking about building a business to suit ourselves, what's working in marketing for you right now, and it's all about human and connection for you. That human connection, really. If somebody
Um,
listening, sorry, go on.
no, go ahead.
I
Finish your
was just
question.
thinking if anybody listening feels a bit behind, because their business
Mm.
doesn't look like what they're seeing online, what they think everyone else looks like, in a nutshell, what would you say to them right now?
Um, One, I would say, look, everybody feels like they're catching up right now, and we were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier. It's like, you know, I do, yes, I feel, for example, that Studio J is a bit of ahead of the curve, and I'm aware of that challenge that in some ways I'm waiting for people to sort of catch up to what it is. Um, but at the same time, I can very quickly look around and find all kinds of areas where other people are way ahead of me. And as I was saying, you're the AI itself, Grok already is a PhD level in every single academic field of study. So, um, but as I was saying earlier, also, that doesn't mean that it replaces us. I don't think that we're ever going to run out of things to do, and nor does the AI think holistically, big picture, or is it creative? It's not thinking in the way that you and I are thinking and piecing things together. It's very kind of targeted. So on one hand, everybody's catching up in some way or other. Um, and it's just a matter of getting past any inertia. If you're feeling that you're stuck, get started and then just ask the AI. You don't need a lesson. You don't need courses. Then buy this 10-day course program, and then you'll learn everything you need to about AI. The AI can teach you how to use AI. You just need to know what are the right. It's really about what are the good questions. Um, and then as far as what's working, we talked a little bit about this in terms of what I was saying that, there's the advertising techniques and there's the organic reach, but I think it is, again, relationship oriented. I think, just, I think one conversation with a person a day is going to be better than 10 social media posts. Um,
I like that advice. I think that's actually something I want to finish on because I think that is very powerful. One conversation a day is better than 10 social media posts.
by a landslide. Yeah, by a
That's
landslide.
wonderful.
Yeah, no, and people need that. I think cold calling is dead. People are screening all of those calls.
Mm,
Um, I'm one of few people who've never gotten into email marketing. So
mm.
I can't tell you whether that's still alive or dead, and I suppose I know everybody, like every marketer always says it works. I just never liked it. It was always spam to me. It's like, it's the same thing as junk mail to me. It's like, it's just not that it's just not interesting to me as a marketer. It's kind of low. Yeah, whatever. It's not interesting, but so I don't know if that's still working, but I think it's really, not just posting, but engaging with people, connecting with people, getting on those calls and and finding who are, as I said, who are the people that are cheering you on, want you to succeed, work with them, build those relationships, make them deep connections, make them real connections.
Excellent, excellent challenge to finish on, honestly, for listeners this week. Get out there and have one real conversation with a real human being every day. I
Yeah.
love that, Julian. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been great.
Thanks so much for having me. It's so great to see you doing this.